Welcome, everybody. We are back to another night of Atlanta Braves baseball. Oh, wait, that's my other job. Back to Digital Marketing Wednesday with my old pal, Coach Ben Mathis. Excited to have you here, Ben. And we didn't coordinate our outfits today, although it sort of looks like we did. We both decided that it was a pink shirt kind of day. So, Ben, what are we covering with the crew today?
We are digging into some fun stuff, some off-the-wall stuff, some stuff you don't really talk about. So click to call on Facebook. We're bringing back sign calls into the digital world. That's going to be a fun little topic. It's been interesting as we've tested that out. The power of surveys. I know a lot of people use like experience surveys for their clients when they close. There's a way that we've been leveraging these to stir up some interest inside of the database, as well as with some old leads. And then we're going to cover a way to stand out whenever you interact with people that we found to be effective. And I told Bill going into this, guys, I didn't know of a better way to say it than that, because it sounds creepy if I say it another way. So I was like, it's just how you interact with people and how they remember you afterwards. So we found a new way to do that. That's really not anything extravagant, but it's so simple and yet it's really effective.
Yeah, all around the lead capture. So I'm excited to get to that. Before we get into the meat of today's call, I know one of the biggest questions that we've been hearing on coaching calls and in our discussions with other agents over the past couple of weeks is about how tight the inventory is and uncovering listings. So I'll be excited as you kind of weave through today's topics, ways that we could also say, and here's a way you could go generate additional listing business off of that too. So before we dive in, if any of you guys have any questions or comments along the way, be sure to drop them in the comment thread. We'll do our best to answer them during the show. And if you happen to be watching the recorded version of this, still drop your questions in there anyway, and Ben or I will jump in at some point in the comment thread and answer them. So Ben, talk to us about click to calls and why that's the new version of a sign call.
Yeah, click to calls are pretty cool, guys. It's a Facebook objective that they've rolled out for everyone to use. And the way I think about it is a digital sign call. So for us, for a long time, sign calls were a powerful part of our business. I mean, you get a sign call in we converted them at a high rate, typically pretty serious buyers that they're out looking, they call you off a sign. If they didn't have an agent, they were pretty solid leads for us. And we've seen those dry up over the past, I would say 2 years. Our sign calls have gone off a cliff. I mean, we would average anywhere from 15 to 20 a month. And then the past 2 years, we're lucky to get 5 a month. Now that varies depending on the county. Some areas that we know perform differently than others. The central location we serve, which is the Raleigh market, we just saw that market die out. However, when we moved into other markets, we've seen it pick back up somewhat, but not near the level that it used to be. And that's just because people now, instead of calling a sign, are more likely to pull their phone out and whatever home search app they use, whether it's your website or it's Zillow or it's Realtor.com, they punch the address in there, or maybe they just look at the map and it geolocates them on their phone and they punch and then they tap on the house, get all the information they need. So they don't have to call the sign anymore. It's not as necessary. So when Facebook put this out there, this click to call option that you can put on your ads, we were like, interesting. Will it actually work? Do people actually want to talk to real estate agents? And what we found was surprisingly good results. And then the other side of it is the leads that have come in have been pretty solid. Again, we put in some filtration mechanisms in there to make sure that we are talking to the most qualified people, whether it be through our targeting, through the copy in the ad itself, things like that. So when you're making one, what you do is you go into your ads manager. It gives you all the different objectives that you can choose, right? You choose the traffic objective, and then you build out your ad just like you normally would. Typical targeting, demographics, psychographic, all the stuff that we talked about before. And then once you get to the build out of the actual ad itself, where you would normally put a link in at, you can put a phone number in for people to call, and they literally click it and it goes straight to their cell phone, like call on the call line on their cell phone, and they can call you and it connects you instantly. And we've seen that work really well. So a couple things that we've done here that are a little bit different is that I know some people are thinking, well, how do I know if it's an actual buyer who can buy calling me? How do I know that it's not someone who has an agent? How do I know, all these different questions about how do I qualify this person essentially before I get on a phone call with them? And then also, what if, say you have a team of people, right? So you're trying to route this to a team. How would you go about doing this? The one way we did it was every one of our listings that we tried this on, we had an ID number with it. So they would know to say, I'm calling on home number 3 or home number 12, or you can make up some really fancy numbers and codes and sound super professional. I'm lazy. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the numbers we're using. If they call, they say we're looking at home number 1 or 2. So that way you're not putting an address on your ad, but you can also identify which home they were looking and that helps you narrow down what they were looking at instead of trying to figure out if you have a big listing inventory, then you know what's going on there. The thing we did on this also was we routed this into our auto response system. So what I mean by that is you can have them call your if you have a line set up with like Grasshopper or Ring Central, it'll go into that virtual assistant, much like when you call in for any kind of service, like on your phone or whatever it may be, and they say, press 1 for this option, press 2 for this option, press 3 for this option. You can set that up for these. So have a number set up. They call in, and it can be press 1 if you already have an agent and you're inquiring about a property. So they would hit 1, and it's going to direct them to go, and it's going to have a pre-recorded message saying, you know, go call your agent essentially and figure out where the property is at. That's what we have that set up as. If
Love it.
It can be, you know, you can have it set up however you want. Press 2 if you're calling about one of the properties we have on the market that you saw on advertising. And then from there, you can further distill it down through if this, then that, and just have them basically go through like a whole dial sequence of menus. And they basically filter themselves out to have you talk with a lender, press 1 or 2. If they say they haven't, then you can actually hit connect to your lender if you want to. You can keep on filtering out the different layers on that. And then by the time they get to actually calling about a property, the systems like Ring Central, Dialpad, Grasshopper, whatever you use, they can broadcast that call out to all of your agents at one time, or you can direct it to go to one agent's phone number, and that person can then be on like call. So like it's almost like doing phone duty from back in the day where you had to be on the floor to answer the phone actually in the office. Same concept. And then they would know, they pick the phone up, answer the phone, talk to the person, ask them what property ID number, and they would say property number 3, and then you can give them the information, qualify them, and then see if they'd be a good fit to be a buyer candidate. And what we found on that is, like I said, one, they're pretty serious buyers because if they make it through the whole filtration mechanism, they're pretty serious because there's several layers that you can put in there. And then the second part of that is most of the time we filtered out the people who were using agents. So for us, we actually saw a spike in the number of calls. At the same time, it was qualified buyers calling in. So it's pretty cool to see. So you can set it up that anybody can call the line and then build in a filtration mechanism system on the back end by having that if this, then that formula set up through phone menus, through whatever system you use.
Yeah, love it, love it. So I scribbled down a couple of questions. So let's kind of go back through some of this. I'm imagining that I'm watching this, and there's a couple of points I'd like for you to address. So the first is talk to us again, because I know this is a topic you and I are very, very passionate about, and maybe somebody's watching this for the first time, or maybe they need to hear you preach about it just a little bit more. Talk to me about why Ads Manager versus just clicking the boost button, and then we'll kind of walk it forward from there.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. So Ads Manager, it's like the sniper rifle versus the shotgun, where with a boost, you go in, it doesn't give you the targeting options. It's kind of going to send it out to everybody. It's really just not ideal. I mean, because the thing is, Facebook's going to take your money. So if you say, I want to spend $100 on this ad, they're not going to say, no, don't do it. It's just not going to do it at the most optimum level of return for you. So if you haven't learned Facebook Ads Manager, you haven't gotten in there, and it's kind of intimidating. We have the digital marketing course put together to walk you through it. We talk about it a lot on Digital Marketing Wednesdays, but it's definitely, it lets you drill down to a more refined level, and there's just so much more you can do. I mean, part of this, what we can chat about here in a second, Bill, is the retargeting options on this. This has been really cool. We use a retargeting ad with a click-to-call feature for people who pinged on our ads, did not sign up, but then we can put this back in front of them and say, hey, click to call to set up a showing, right? So we can set all that up on the back end of this as well. So there's just a lot more options inside of Ads Manager versus just the boost button.
Right. I sort of draw the parallel between, like, if I showed up at anyone's office, or someone showed up at my office and said, give me your smartphone, I'm going to give you your old flip phone back. You would be like, over my dead body. However, think back to perhaps when we made that transition from the flip phone or the whatever with the predecessor to your smartphone happened to be, that was sort of a clunky transition for most people. And there was a learning curve to that. And every time you update your device, there's a slight learning curve to that. And ultimately, once you get over that learning curve, there's no way you can go back. This is night and day difference. So now when you're an ads manager, so you said it's traffic is the objective, and then you build the click to call number in. So what are you guys seeing on results from that compared to other types of ads like lead ads or something like that you've taught us about before?
Yeah. So the cost per result is higher. So it does cost a little bit more to do this. So we're paying anywhere from $7 to $8 for a phone call. Okay. The key there is that when we pay for this phone call, again, when we talk about the lead ads, remember the whole point of our lead ads when we walk through the lead conversion sequence of it, get a response is your first job. And in that response mechanism, we're always trying to get people on the phone. So what this does is it cuts out 2 or 3 pieces of the conversion process for us, because now we're getting people directly on the phone. And then if you build in the layers inside of your phone system on the back end, it actually is filtering out the people who are not qualified, have agents, are just kicking the tires on something. That's the other side of it too. People aren't just going to sign up to get a phone call and be connected with somebody unless they're serious about it. So it goes from the level of, if you think of the top of the funnel leads where people could just be looking, 97% of them are just looking at pretty pictures of houses. This takes you straight down to the middle to the bottom part of the funnel, because now they're actually picking a phone up to talk to somebody. In today's world, people don't really pick a phone up to talk to somebody unless they're serious. Yeah. So for us, we sat back and we said, what will we, again, asking the question, what's the amount you're willing to pay for a closing? We looked at that and said, if this is between this range, and for us, between $25 and $40 is really good in our market for a live lead to come in. Most of the ads, again, I take this back from some of the bigger listing aggregators or portals in our area. For me to get a live lead on one of those in my target area in Raleigh, you're paying anywhere from $500 to $750 for a live transfer, right? So if I'm getting them for $8, and even if, out of the people that we get, 5 of them are bad, 5 of them are good, that's a really good rate of return for us. So I'm willing to play that game on that front of things.
Yeah. And are you finding that your buyer's agents are more excited about these leads than maybe they were the lead ad leads?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, you put a live buyer on the phone that's been screened pretty much, and then they get to go to this, could talk to them. Oh, this is the house you want. The house is sold. Are you looking at other properties? They set them up on a search and off and running. I mean, I almost want to charge them for an ISA now. Be like,
well, I was going to say and I've talked about this before. It's an interesting example. Like in this case, you're using the phone system as a preliminary screen. And the other route is the chatbot route, which we won't go down today. However, we talked about that before, and I know that's something you're really excited about as well. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about systems that are filtering very, very inexpensively and methodically to give your buyer's agents more qualified leads, which obviously they're excited about at what, a tenth of the cost or less of what you pay somewhere else. For some reason, my paper shredder just kicked on. I don't know why. There's a ghost in the machine. So I'm going to mute my video for a second and go turn that thing off, and you carry on.
No, you're good. Well, that's the point of it, right? Is now we can start leveraging the technology and the systems to actually bring the cost down on the front end. So they're acting like they're ISA systems for us. And jokingly, I say that, but I'll tell you this. I have not had a problem with people answering their phones since we started running these type of ads and testing these out. When people are coming in and raising their hand and saying, hey, I want to buy or sell a house, that's been really, really cool to see. The other side of it too, the retargeting piece of it, people really underutilize retargeting. And I think the thought process is you have to think about that. These are people who have interacted with your brand in some extent. And the cool part about being inside of Ads Manager and working through that back end, building out custom audiences, is you can build it off a lot of behavior that people don't even think about. I mean, if people just click on one of my forms, but they don't fill it out and they don't go all the way through the process, I can still put my ads in front of that person and tell Facebook, I just want this in front of them. And now I can really have a different kind of message that goes in front of them at a much lower amount because they've already interacted with my brand. The thing with this click to call feature is now you can run this back in front of custom audiences like, I don't know, try expired, try FSBOs if you can get their emails and their numbers and their names and their addresses. You put that stuff into Facebook, they can retarget it for you. And now you can tailor those messages to people about, if your home isn't selling or maybe your home came off the market, you can talk very specifically and then they click to call you. those are serious people. I look at intent all the time, Bill, and I know both of you and Debbie have heard me say this before. I'm always thinking, what's the intent behind all of the stuff we're doing? I know that if I'm on my Facebook, on my app on my phone, and I click the call with the expectation I'm going to put the phone to my ear and talk to somebody, my intent is much higher than someone who's just clicking on a Facebook lead ad, automatically filling out information, and then going to look at houses on a website. So for us on that side of things, I think it's an exciting thing to try out. And then dialing in the different ways to get people to respond to it. That's been the part that's been interesting too. We've seen better responses to videos we're running out there with our listings versus just running a plain face, just like a one picture ad on it too. So all the different pieces we're testing right now, but so far it's been exciting to see because it's like getting a live transfer, which like we said, it's like, way more expensive to do.
Sure. Well, and the beautiful thing I think that you're weaving together in all of this, a few shows ago, we talked about going out and buying geographic lists of data since the geographic targeting at the sniper level has really been taken away. So going and buying those geographical lists of data, loading them in as custom lists. And now, so take this, which I know you guys have already connected. I'm just putting some dots together for the folks at home. So now your funnel's wide at the top with this email list that you bought for cheap. You run it through this with a click to call and a filtration system in it, and then are retargeting. And now the phone calls that you're getting are much, much higher intent, potentially listing calls. So I think it's a brilliant strategy that just cuts out all the people that are charging you hundreds, perhaps thousands of dollars to generate these types of leads for you.
Right. And I mean, go back to the intent piece for me. That's what it is, Bill. When you look at it, like you're saying, you take in, load in those custom audiences. There's so much you can do with this, and we're dialing it in right now. And again, we've always talked about layering. So I'm not an or person, I'm an and person. So we already have our direct mail campaigns going to our farm areas. So now we're going to take this and layer this on top of the direct mail, on top of the prospecting calls we're already making, give people an option to reach out to us if they have questions. Building out specific listing funnels with this built in as a step now on retargeting that. If someone clicks to an ad, downloads a guide, now we can say, well, why don't you connect with one of our agents to help you get a customized market analysis of your home? That's all stuff we can automate. So again, going back to, I am probably going to, now that you've talked me into it today, Bill, I'm going to charge my people a fee for the ISA. When they complain about it, I'm going to say, call Bill, here's his number.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that. However, I do like the scalability of the system that you guys are building out there. So before we transition to surveys, I got one other question or thought on this. Let's say I'm watching this discussion that you and I are having right now, and I'm saying, I hear you guys. However, Ben's been doing this for a long time, and Bill's just showing up to talk for a little bit. I can't go do that, or I would need another person to do that. Make the case for either why they should start getting their feet in the water here if they haven't already, or they should go hire someone who knows how to do this.
Yeah, good question. Well, again, it's something we talk about a lot at the coaching company. When you coach with us, you hear us talk about downside risk versus upside potential, right? So I always look at what's the true cost of you just figuring out this one little piece of it and testing it. And say you put $100 towards it, you spend 2 or 3 hours figuring all the pieces out, as extraneous and aggravating as it may be,
right?
But you put that all together and it produces one listing for you. Most listings in most markets, even if you're in a lower sale price, you're talking about a $6,000 check, right? So then I look at that and I go, was it worth that time and effort? Now that you've done it once, the next time you go to do it, it's going to get easier. Then your conversion rates are going to go higher. Your return is going to be higher on it. So to me, I look at the dollars on it. Unless you're sitting there saying, I'm going to spend $6,000 by doing this one thing, or $10,000 in some markets, if you're in a higher price market and more, I would say go attack it. We have resources at the coaching company. The digital marketing course will help get you started on this and started down this path of building these things out. And then the other side of it is, if you're like, you know what, it's just not worth my dollar per hour or the other tasks I need to be doing, then look at how much would it cost for me to go hire someone just to put this together to test it out for me. There's so many services out there now. It's not extraordinarily expensive to go hire someone on a contract basis to do this for you and run it for a couple of weeks or a couple months and just see what comes out of it. And then just say, what am I potentially risking here? And what's the upside potential? If you run it for 2 months and you get 2 deals out of it and you make, say, $12,000, but it costs you $2,000 or $3,000, pretty good rate of return. I would take those odds all day long.
Sure.
So looking at it from that angle of if you have the time and you want to go take it on and go try it, go do it. There's resources there that you have, and if not, then go find someone else to hire it out and let them do it for you. But just look at the downside risk on it versus upside potential. The potential far outweighs the risk on this. And the last piece, Bill, and then I'll let you chime whatever you want on this. I think it's moving in this direction. Like I was saying, our sign calls disappear. And if your market, your sign calls haven't disappeared, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time before people shift to completely being online. And the reason simply because they have this thing in their hand all day long, right? And it's becoming more normal to have this in your hand for everything you do in your world than not have one of these. So that's where the shift is going to come, that if it hasn't hit you yet, it's going to. So my question to you is, do you want to be ahead of that curve or behind it?
Yeah. And that's the biggest threat in this whole discussion, is being late to the dance. With this conversation, is even though we've been having this conversation together for 2+ years, and you've been doing this for 7-8 years now, it's still early in the game. However, the clock's ticking on this. And I know we both hope that more and more people take this more seriously than they are. So hopefully this is further encouragement to that, guys. So let's transition, talk about surveys. How are you guys using surveys? And then what are you seeing as the biggest benefit to those?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the sexiest things you can do is send out a survey right now. I'm serious, guys. But no, it's.
Write that down. Yeah.
Right. Put that in your notes.
Surveys equal.
Everybody following along. Put it down. No, it's one of those pieces that was. It's interesting what people will respond to. So again, I always go back to. If we're talking lead generation, lead follow-up, or lead revival is another category I look at. My first job is always, how do I get people to respond to me? So I try some of the weirdest things, and Bill's seen some of the emails we send out, things we try. I have no shame when it comes to trying to get someone to respond to me, because I know that's how I can start winning the game. So for me, it's like, what do we need to do here to win this? And what we tested was on a small batch of our database. I noticed that our survey rates, whenever we sent it out, we do twice a year with our client database, just a general check-in, kind of state of our clients is what I call it. What do they have going on? Anything we can do for them. We send it out twice a year just to see, but that email always gets the highest open rates. And part of it was a piece I'll talk about in a second that makes sure people open it. So when you're promoting this helps get people involved in it. But it's also because they want to be heard. So I was like, okay, so how can we take this to the lead gen side of things? So we started saying, okay, so why don't we use a survey around real estate, asking about the state of the market from the consumer perspective, and ask people to respond to it.
Sure.
Right? And see what happens. And we send it out to a group of about 500 people in our database that are stale old leads just sitting there. I think some of them are probably 7 years old, sitting there with valid email addresses. I'll say that's the caveat. They had valid emails on them. And out of that group of 500, we had 396 people who had never talked to us before, never responded to us before. And trust me, they have been hammered on my end with lead follow-up. They've responded and they filled out a daggum survey. And I was like, why? Why now do you decide to fill out a survey, but you don't talk to us, for the past 7 years? 7 years. And it was because it was a survey. And we asked about the state of the market. We allowed them to talk about it. And a couple of things here to notice. The first was we offered a prize. So that apparently incentivizes people when you throw prizes out there. And the thing that we learned on this was I was, from past experiences of doing surveys with our client database, we always found a better response when people thought there was more than one opportunity to win. So the way we structure it was we had $55 Starbucks cards for winners is how we would talk about it in the email. We're going to give away to 5 people, randomly select them, whoever fills out the survey. And then we have one big prize. You can do a $1 cash prize. It can be a giveaway, a Yeti giveaway. It can be some of your team swag, some gear, whatever you may have. Having that prize incentive in there gets people to open the email up, but then look inside of it and actually do the work that's behind it. The other part of it is how we structured our questions. So I think there's a big difference between asking people past questions versus future questions, if that makes sense. So the way I look at this is, if I ask you something that has happened to you before, if I said to you, describe to me what you're doing, you're going to say you're thinking about it. Really what you're doing is remembering. It's a lot less work to remember than it is to think forward and cast a vision, right? So I think when we send these out, we're always asking them past questions instead of questions along the line of, hey, are you thinking about moving or making a move in the future? We would ask them questions that we knew the markers for in terms of the market data. So we would say, do you rent or do you own? How long have you rented or have you owned for? We didn't say, when are you thinking about moving? We're gathering market data on them to help us identify if they're in that 7 to 10 year period of renting or owning. They're prime candidates for me now to go back and follow up with other items of value, because based on market statistics by NAR and based on things that we've seen in our own database, we know they're prime candidates to move. You can also ask that question, the rent to own. We talked about at the top of the webinar today, Bill, about, where are we finding listings? I'm telling you, it never stops shocking me how many people in my database are actually sellers. I always think they're all buyers. There's a bunch of sellers hidden in there, man. So we would structure the survey in two pieces, right? So the first piece is asking about their perception of the market. And this is where, again, it's getting them to basically have a conversation with us. So it's building rapport in their mind, because they're talking about their perception of the market. Is the market up or down? Do you think there's going to be a recession? Do you see value in owning a home? Would you buy a home right now if you could, or if you wanted to? Again, just asking questions about the general market, getting market sentiment from them. And then we frame any other questions on the back end about information where we want to gather information about, do you rent or do you own? How long have you rented or have you owned? And then we say things like, where do you want us to send the prize at? So now I'm getting their information of where I can mail something to physically. Things like that. So we just ask all that information on the back end, and they responded to it in droves. I don't know the percentage on that. I know it's really super high.
Right.
4 out of 5, 400, almost 400 out of 500 people we emailed it to responded to it. So for us, it was a big moment of, wow, that's interesting that just worked. But it also it gave me a lot of market data about what consumer sentiment is. So we're going to take that, we're going to package it into a report that we're going to offer to potential sellers and buyers that were already in that funnel now. And we're going to repackage all the information that it gave us. That's another follow-up for us, plus the prizes and things of that nature, announcing those things. So there's a lot of touches built into a simple survey.
Right. Well, and there are so many things that are cool about that I hope the folks at home are taking note of. It's essentially your version of NAR's profile of home buyers and home sellers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And their response is triggered by the fact that they want to answer the survey. So I'm that weird guy who loves surveys. Sarah makes fun of me about this all the time. I love filling out surveys. Maybe it's because I have no shortage of opinions. However, I get one in my inbox, and we got one for Clemson football the other day that basically said, if we play football, are you coming or not? And there were a lot more questions in it than that. However, they did that with all of their, I guess, people that they wanted their opinion on. And you see them in your inbox all the time from travel companies or whoever. So we could become students of the way that those things are created to get that response.
Yeah, I think as humans, we're wired that we want to give an opinion. And whenever someone asks us for an opinion, we're happy to give it in that context. So I think then you add in the layer of the prizes that of course creates that motivation to complete it. And then the way you structure the questions, I think, is important. If you start the survey out saying, are you thinking about buying or selling a home? They're going to click out of it and not fill it out, because it just looks like you're, not bringing them any value. But asking them questions with good opinions, and then layering in on the back end the info gathering session part of it for yourself, there's value on both ends there. And I can tell you from that, we've had several buyers raise their hand. People are in the pipeline now that were not in our pipeline. Again, these were 7-year-old leads sitting there in our database. 7 years. Guys, 7 years is a long time to be sitting in a database, and then suddenly raise their hand and fill something out and act like they're alive.
So that's 7 years. That's like a quarter of your life, man.
Is that a Debbie joke? Did she text you?
That is. Yeah. I just saw it. It just popped up. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, well, it's a long time to be sitting there and get a response from it. So on that end of things, and then you think through where else are you not using surveys in your business that you could use it to get yourself information. So take the same state of the market survey and use it on your client database. You'll get a lot of interesting answers in there that you may not have known about. They may raise their hand and say, hey, you know what? They're giving all the indicators that they're thinking about selling their home, and they're not on your radar. Now they can be on your radar, right? And your clients are more likely to fill those out too. So
Yeah.
If you don't have a giant database of people to run this through, run it through your own sphere and you'll be surprised. And it's a cool piece of marketing too, to have a state of the market in your local community based on local opinions, right?
Yeah.
That's unique. You don't see a lot of agents doing that. So now we have that to offer out there as a lead generation magnet to people, as well as an item of value to our database. So it serves a lot of things. And you know me, I love when things layer like that because it reminds me of cake, and I love cake. So that kind of stuff makes me happy whenever I see those layers stacking up. A lot of different ways to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you guys using a particular survey tool for that, or you just run it through a Google survey?
Great question. So we did this one through Google Forms because, again, free and I'm cheap. So I like trying that first. And then what we'll probably do on the next time around, we've used Typeform before. I don't love the limitations around the if this then that formulas in there. They have some things that will take you to the next module, things of that nature. Basically, if someone answers a question a certain way, sometimes I want to direct them down another path of questioning versus the one they're on. It didn't let you do that at a high level. So I think this next time around, we're looking at Jotform. They've done a lot of upgrades over the years, JOT form. They've done a lot of upgrades over the years that look really good and will give us those capabilities to expand the survey out a little bit.
Yeah, cool. Love it. All right, I'm going to look real quick at our questions that we might have in here. So as I'm looking at this, let's go ahead and transition, because I know the other thing you wanted to touch on was content and graphics for lead conversion. You've got a really great setup on that. So fire away.
Yeah, for sure. So when we were writing the digital marketing course and running through it, Bill asked me this profound question. And for you guys, this is something that you'll carry in the back of your minds forever, like I do every day when I wake up now. He basically said after the first time we went through it and we were looking at each slide, he says, why does this matter to me? That's the question you have to answer when you're doing things sometimes. You know, why does this matter to me? And what he meant by that was the person receiving that information. Why does that matter to them? Why is that an important point? Because we had points in there that I thought were important and cool, but at the end of the day, the person on the other side of the table didn't care. It didn't matter to them. And then the second question out of that I always think about is, what would make me remember this? So when I think about those two questions in tandem, it really goes back to any interaction we're having right now. And how do we get people to remember us? How do you stand out in the crowd? And one way we were doing that was with market graphics. So we were creating these graphics, these infographics, different things for our social marketing, and as well as our follow-up campaigns. And I was thinking about the typical interaction between an agent and a prospect. Whether you're door knocking, you're circle prospecting, you're at an open house, maybe even a referral, or maybe you're in line somewhere and somebody starts talking to you and you have a conversation about something. At some point in that interaction, if someone says to you and you're in person, hey, I appreciate what we're talking about. Love to get your information. What do they ask you for?
Business. Mostly the business card.
Business card, right? Yeah, business card.
You have a card on you, they say.
Right. Do you have a card on you? And I don't carry business cards. And for that very reason, one, I want to capture their information. So we were already executing on that piece of it. So the next thing I thought of was, well, how would I make that person remember me? What would make me different than everyone else? So what we started doing was having our agents download the graphics we were using and keeping it on their phone. And instead of me giving out a business card now I'm going to have them go and say, well, here's an informational graphic on the market, depending on what that person is wanting information on. For our sellers, we have seller graphics, and I actually went old school and printed one out. So this is kind of what they would actually get on a text message from us. And basically we save it as a PNG file, and it's just graphics on the, 3 key criteria when hiring an agent to sell your home. And we give the 3 key criteria in our stats versus the market stats. They have this saved as a graphic. Now, if this person, say, Bill, I text this to you and we're talking, is this going to stick in your mind that I sent this to you as a graphic on your text message?
Yeah, I mean, because as you and I both know, and the folks who at home who've been around us for a little bit know that there's like this underground society of people who are good at deflecting salespeople, and all of them have discovered that the way to get salespeople to think that the conversation went well and to think that they have a chance is to ask for the business card. And then if we're not careful as a salesperson, we hey, great conversation, here's my card, call me. And because the vast majority of our competitors would do that, the second that you do something like what you're describing, they're like, holy cow, I never even thought of that. I've never had a real estate agent, but I've never had a salesperson do that to me before.
Right. Yeah. You stand out, right? You're memorable. So, and the other side of it is you have enough of these in your pipeline or in your back pocket where you put them on a folder on your phone so you can pull out something for sellers, something for buyers, whoever it is you're talking to. So then the content is valuable to that person. It's memorable because, like Bill was saying, I've never experienced anyone doing this to me, right? And I meet enough people that if someone had done this to me, I would have remembered it because it stands out. The other thing that was really impactful for me to think about is people are visual. So when you're trying to explain to someone what the market is like, if you have something that shows graphics on it or say, you know, these are the 3 key things you need to look for when you're talking about or talking to a real estate agent or potentially interviewing one to sell your home, and you can pull this up on your phone, which you always have your phone with you. You probably wouldn't have this in your back pocket, you know, when you needed it. But being able to pull this up on your phone and show them graphics, say, hey, you know what, I'll send this to you real quick. What's your number? Not only did you just take control of that situation, you gave them a way to take in information visually, since we're extremely visual creatures. That's impactful to them. They're going to remember it. And you just created the perfect follow-up now for yourself to keep them in your world. So for us, that's been a little, I would say, tactical maneuver. Really, really powerful, though. We've been doing this with expired. So this particular one is when we send to expired. Whenever we call them, we'll text this over to them. And we'll say, hey, we're going to send you something real quick. And they expect something in an email. And we always say, is this the best number to text you on? So when you text them this or a video, these type of things stand out and make you stand out from other people. And we've had really good success with callbacks, with follow-ups. They remember who you are. And it's a great reference point because you can say, hey, you remember I'm the guy that sent you that graphic in your text. They're going to remember you because again, it's a pattern interrupt. It's not something they're used to seeing.
Yeah. No, nobody else did it. So are you guys creating all of those things, or are you borrowing that information from other places, or how are you putting that together?
That's a good question. So you can do it either way. For us, most of this is created in-house. We do a lot of this on our own stuff because we're personalizing it to the community we're in. So for example, this one is for our Raleigh market. This particular graphic that we did is for our Raleigh market. We have it created for other markets as well that we're in right now. So that stuff we keep hyper local. However, you can use national data if you want to. I think it's great to layer that stuff in there. I wouldn't lean all the way into the national conversation and just use that because you want to demonstrate you're the local expert as well. But I think it's a great tool to kind of supplement whatever you're doing. So I know Keeping Current Matters is a big one that a lot of people use. They produce some really good graphics, good information for you to retool or use on your own. And be able to send that kind of stuff out. So personally, I prefer keeping it local as much as possible because that's more impactful to your person. Again, going back to your question, Bill, that you asked me, and it haunts me to this day. I don't know if haunt's the right word. That's what we're going to go with that. But you know, why does this matter to me? If they can get, and the thing I tell my agents when we're making this stuff is, if they can get this stuff off their news channel or on their local news websites about the national market, they probably don't need to hear it from us. They probably find it more impactful when we tell them what's going on in their city or in their neighborhood even. That's much more impactful for them than what's going on in the national conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you walked back the word haunt. I mean, and you make a good point in all of that is we all have so much information to communicate. And sometimes if we're not careful, what we do is we get lost into just putting the information out there and forget that there's this bridge to build between what we're saying and why it actually matters to the listener. And to the extent that we can spoon feed that to them or build that bridge, and I think you do a great job of that, that's really where the secret comes in the marketing. So one quick thought on that, and I'm going to hand it back to you, is don't forget most of you in your markets, your local association of realtors or your local MLS puts together monthly reports for you already. Like in my local market, I think it breaks it out into like 34 different sub areas. And so you could go in and pull that sub area data, screen clip it, and put it in a personally branded marketing thing like what Ben's talking about. So you don't necessarily have to overcomplicate it in order to have a customized piece.
Right. Yeah. No. Keep simple as possible is the best way to go on this. And then the other piece, you made a really good point there, Bill, is thinking of that bridge. So I would think of like a story, and all of this to me is like a connected story or a soap opera, right? Every single episode should leave you hanging on for the next episode. So if they get this from you, what are they getting next? What's the next piece of the story? Where are you taking them down? What road are you taking them down? So again, going back to intent, I'm always thinking of, if I send someone this as my first line of contact with them, what's next? What's the next piece? So when you're thinking through pieces that you may want to set up at the outset, kind of think through the conversations you may be having. again, this is impactful even for your database, texting this stuff over to them when they're like, when you have a conversation about the market and then you hang the phone up and you can send them a little graphic like this with the market on it. So this is what's going on. And it's branded to you. That's impactful to your database, to your sphere, to the people that actually know what you're talking about, but it just reaffirms that on another level. And what we found people doing actually is sharing these. So we had an expired person come in off of one of these that we texted over to them. And then they decided to list with us after several conversations because, you know, they're a lot of fun. But they decided to list with us and they became a really good client of ours. And then they actually, we went to another person's house and they actually pulled this out on their phone that is saved as an image. They said, yeah, my friend, this person's name sent this over to me and I saw this information and this is what, you know, this is why we connected, is because they want to have a conversation because they saw about our stats, but also about the market stuff. So people share this stuff too. So the other thing I would say is make sure it's branded to you, make sure you're giving them ways to go do things. So you can't see it on this particular graphic, but we actually tell them where to go on here to go get a home valuation. We have ways for them to text us, email us, call us. There's call to actions built all throughout this thing that let them go back and connect with us some other form, some other way, so that if they do share it with someone, that person has a way to get in contact with us, whether it's direct contact through a phone call, or if they want to go on our website and get a home valuation, or, you know, maybe they want to go look at houses or something. There's different call to actions built in throughout. Just make sure you're doing that because people will share these with people.
Sure. Absolutely. Hey, it's great stuff, man. What else do you want to leave the folks with for today before we wrap up?
Go do. Just go out and execute on some of this stuff. Again, like Bill was saying, pick one piece, work on it, go knock it down. Always be thinking about what's your intent behind it, build a story out and then go run with it. And again, don't complicate. When we started out, we didn't have pretty graphics and everything. We just went out and did stuff. Like Bill's saying, your local association, they have a ton of stuff built out for people. I know ours does too. Multiple reports, graphics, things like that you can pull in and do things with. And get things going quickly. I'm a much bigger fan of getting things done quickly than having them perfect. And Bill can attest to that. I'm much more of a let's ready, fire, aim than ready, aim, fire. You know, just because too many people get so caught up in the ready, aim stage that that's all they do is they go ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim. They never fire. So just go out and execute on this stuff and go attack it. And using these pieces of the puzzle will help you create potential listings as well. That's been the biggest thing from the click to call, the surveys, and then these graphic pieces. Everything we're doing right now is listing geared. We're doing nothing to produce buyers right now. And my conversation with my team every single day, this has been going on since January of this year. They are so sick of hearing it, but every day we walk in, we are a listing team who also happens to serve as buyers. Because right now the name of the game is listing. So we're working really hard and doing these steps and putting these things in your funnels or in your systems. It'll produce listings for you. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, great job as always, Ben. Looks like we've covered all the questions that came up or got texted in along the way. So thanks for tackling that. And we'll see you guys back here in 2 weeks. Take care.